Welcome to Laying Fallow. I'm Donna Von Bruning. Today I speak with Simon Lough. Simon was a chorus major at the Savannah Arts Academy, and after a challenging start, he has found his path. He is currently studying acting at the Savannah College of Art and Design and plans to graduate in 2026. To start, this is the quote you gave me. You probably don't remember it, do you?
No.
Okay. You said to me when I asked you for a quote, everyone else gave me these long quotes, and you said, if you have something to say, silence is a lie. Jordan Peterson.
I gave a Jordan Peterson quote.
Does that make you cringe?
Change my quote?
Yes, you can.
Gosh.
Yes. So, okay. Yeah. And so, you just were really philosophical, and it's funny to watch your face cringe because you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. And so my question for you is, have you embraced this quote or moved away from this philosophy? Or if you had to give me a quote now, or would you like to pretend that you never said that?
No, I'll address it. I've embraced this quote. Not in the sense that he meant it. Not in the sense that I see something wrong in the world and I'm going to go out and hold up a sign and, no, actually, I could probably say no, I have not embraced that quote. I have not embraced that quote. I've seen plenty of things that I disagree with and don't like. Yeah. And I just keep my mouth shut. Because ultimately I want to go into an industry where people have to like you, And so it's yeah, sure, I could have a spotlight on me right now and make a bunch of enemies and, live by that quote, but no, I have not.
Does that feel short-sighted to do something like that? Or
if you want your life in the long run to be that of somebody who speaks out against things that they don't like, no, it's not short-sighted. But I don't want that.
Right.
I don't want to be a martyr. I don't. So yeah, no, for me, it would be short-sighted to go out there and join these Israel-Palestine protests,
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into it, but.
I mean, it's one of my questions on here, so certainly, yeah. I mean, because it's changed so much. I mean, I would imagine as I interview people, it's going to change. But yeah, it's super interesting.
It is very interesting. I think, here's my thoughts on it.
I
think a lot of this is FOMO. A lot of this is students today wanting purpose, maybe from this disruption of COVID, wanting purpose. We hear stories of the Vietnam War protests that happen on college campuses. So yes, this is our thing. When in reality, this issue is very far removed from us, as opposed to the Vietnam War was not. It was very
right. Those kids were getting drafted.
Exactly. I can understand if these protesters, if what they really want is for their colleges to divest from Israel, anything Israel related. But is that what they really want? Or is there a lot of self-hatred, hatred of this country, hatred of who we are on the world stage, and they just want to find purpose. So, and I don't know if you saw, a lot of these protesters are not students. They're just people that are coming onto the campus and they're joining the cause. So I'm a little bit skeptical of it. Ultimately, I agree with the motives, but I'm a little bit skeptical.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I asked Nolan and Grayson, what's going on at school. I guess Georgia shut it down right away.
So did SCAD.
SCAD shut it down right away?
SCAD will not let students protest at all. Actually,
really?
A week and a half ago, we had the Sidewalk Chalk Festival.
Oh, yeah.
So around that time, some students were wanting to get together and protest. Yeah. But the SCAD said, nope, you're not doing it. Any space you're going to, we're shutting this down. So they got leftover chalk from the Chalk Festival.
Yeah.
And all around SCAD buildings in Savannah, they wrote these messages Paula Wallace, Heart's Blood Money, or stuff like
Paula Wallace, Heart's Money.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Stuff about Gulfstream being involved in it, anti-Palestine. So it's interesting. I was walking down, going to class.
Yeah, you're
stepping on these messages.
People should be worried about getting a job.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, it's so crazy, so crazy. So anyway, back to this. Tell me your journey in the last 4 years, because it's never a straight line.
No, and mine became especially crooked with...
Not bad.
No, it's not a bad thing.
I
explored lots of territory to the left and right of the traditional path. So COVID hits March of 2020. And I think we kind of all realized that, oh crap, this is going to be a long-term thing. I think we were all over here. We're like, guys, you're not going back. So we're like, crap. But yeah, we didn't really know what that meant at the time. I was just thinking, long summer break. But that long summer break turned into probably the worst year of my life right there, because I decided not to go and do online classes strictly. So I just worked. I stayed at home and I worked for about 6 months. Worked at a restaurant as a cashier, Sunrise Cafe. And, that was fine. I mean, I didn't really have a lot of friends, but I had to get up and go to my work, and I kept my life going. And then I was like, okay, working sucks. I'm tired of this. Doing classes is so much easier. So I did the online only classes, and I lived at home for about 6 months.
Where did you go to school?
SCAD, Savannah College of Art Design.
Okay.
And I was a writing major, so I took writing classes, but also, the general education classes and SCAD. And yeah, that was a terrible decision. I mean, it was just bad. Definitely the worst 6 months of my life, living at home, doing online classes, which are a joke, by the way. Everybody who's taken online classes and is listening to this will probably understand, like, college online classes are worse than high school classes. They're an absolute joke. And you're paying money for them. So, but yeah, I sank into a deep depression there. I was like, something's got to change here. Eventually I went back to SCAD, but on ground classes. I lived in the dorms away from my house, even though I lived in the same city. And that was much better. I was still kind of digging myself out of this hole that I had fallen into.
Was that fall of 20? When did you do that?
I worked fall of 2020. Yes. And then I did SCAD online classes spring of 2021. And then I went to SCAD on ground.
Got it. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Again, it was better on ground, but I still feel like I was missing something. I'm a very humanities-oriented person, and SCAD is like very practical, hands-on education, which I appreciate, but I wanted some humanities exploration. And I wanted to get out too, because I was stuck in Savannah ever since COVID hit. So I went way out. I went to St. John's College in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I was there for a year. So I started in fall of 22, and ended in late spring of 23. There for a year. It was a very mixed bag experience. By then, COVID was really easing off. We didn't have to wear masks. Everybody was in person. And actually, that was, in some sense, it was the best time of my life that I've had up to this point. In other senses, it was tough. What made it great was I had a real community of people that I didn't have during COVID, that I had none of during COVID. So I go from literally having no regular human interaction with people my age to being surrounded with people of my age more than I can help. Like, people just knocking on my door, hey, Simon, let's go do something. I'll walk down the campus, run into people, hey, we're doing this. All the time, constant interaction. And I think just from going from, it was so big for my development. I think I was such a different person when I got zero social interaction. And I changed so much when I was always talking with people. And I became a new person. And I really liked that. There were other aspects of the college that I really didn't like. That made me end up leaving. Like studying ancient Greek and ancient math and all these bullshit subjects that I just couldn't convince myself that I liked. But so eventually I ended up leaving. I said, it doesn't matter. I want to be a writer anyways. I got a lot from this college. I'm going to go back to SCAD. Full experience, on ground, real classes. I'm more mature now. I can appreciate the education a lot more. And so far it's been quite good. I've managed to make friends just from being more outgoing, not just from organizing stuff for people to do outside of class together. I've been very busy, So yeah, that's where I am now. I'm taking on-ground classes at SCAD.
You said you're more outgoing. Is that because, do you think it's just like natural for who you are as a person? Or do you think it's because you had that serious time of being isolated? And then you went to St. John where you got it sounds like you got overwhelmed, like a wave of social. Mm. And that forced you maybe to be social. I guess what I'm trying to get to is that something you figured out at SCAD? Like you were like, okay, I've had both extremes. That's what it sounds like to me. And you kind of found what works for you this past year.
I didn't realize how important it was for me to be outgoing and social and have a social life until actually it wasn't even during the SCAD COVID years, the first SCAD COVID years. It was while I was St. John's. And about 2 months in, after socializing 18 hours a day for 2 months, I was like, I looked at myself, I had a self-conscious moment. I was like, I have changed so much and I am actually quite happy now. And that was when I kind of put the pieces together about really how important it is for me to go out there and talk to people. That might just be a me personal thing. It might be everybody. But I also realized in that moment the damage that had been done those first COVID years of not seeing anybody. Who could I have been if I had a regular experience?
Yeah.
If I had regular friends
Yeah.
in a time when they were taking away from us. And then coming back to SCAD, at St. John's, the social life was kind of provided because I was on campus. Everybody was around everybody all the time. SCAD's a little different. It wasn't as easy, but I understood the importance of it. So I was like, okay, I have to make the decision to be social here. So I'm going to go up and talk to this person. I'm going to say hi. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to invite this person to go see a show with me. So in short conclusion, I realized after having the social life for a little while what it's like to not have the social life. After experiencing both extremes, I understood the importance.
One of the things I want to hear about is how you think your personal relationships were affected by the pandemic. And what I mean by that is, do you feel like you held on to high school friends too long, or you let go of them too quickly? It made you appreciate them because you guys were in it together. You know, like, I guess that's what I'm looking for, like friendships, you know, because a lot of times you go away to college or you start a career or whatever, and you shed all of that as you become this new person. Maybe you hold on to one or two people. How is that different for you?
The ones that I had at the time became much better friends, but I didn't make any new ones because of COVID. My situation was a little bit different than, say, some of our friends who went off to college with each other. I feel like in that situation, it might have been a bit of a crutch. If you have that comfort of knowing somebody really well, of having spent time with them during COVID, really formed a bond, that makes it a lot harder to go out and make new friends. You don't have that drive of you being completely lonely and having to go out and meet people. I was here in Savannah. I had our friend Gabe, you know, and we grew very close. I actually wasn't even friends with him that much during high school. It was only like until after high school when we were both in Savannah, I started hanging out. But then I went away, so all of that was kind of erased. And I made completely new friends. So
did you try to hang on to any of the, like, did you feel compelled at all to hang on to any of these high school relationships because of what you guys went through together or because you got closer?
I would have regular phone calls with Gabe while we were away. I definitely felt like we had been through enough. I had kind of helped him with his relationship. I'd been there for him, and that really bonded us. So yeah, with the other guys in our friend group, we would text occasionally, but it wouldn't really be like heartfelt. I wouldn't maintain this relationship.
Right.
You know. But yeah, I felt a couple key relationships were valuable to hold on to.
Do you think the experience of being a high school senior and college freshman in 2020 made you a more flexible person or developed stronger cravings for traditions or letting it all go?
Pretty soon on, I embraced the fact that I was not going to follow the traditional path. And I've always been somebody who's willing to buck tradition. So I was quite comfortable with it. I actually saw it as quite the positive for our generation. I kind of thought, well, maybe this will make people wake up instead of just putting their head down and following the path that's been set before them by older generations, especially in an age when the college degree is probably the least valuable it's ever been.
Right.
So I had a little bit of optimism about a shakeup for myself, but also potentially for a generation.
But how do you feel about those traditions now? Like, how important are marking milestones for you? Like, will you go to your graduation or do you not care?
I don't care.
You don't care at all?
I'm not one for...
Yeah. Even before any of this?
No.
Okay, so it really didn't affect you.
Starting new things is very big for me. Having like a bow tied on to really end something is not as important. I think I've always been quite flexible with things and okay with things ending abruptly. I can quickly adapt to a new situation. I don't feel like my life has to be lived in chapters, which is kind of an artificial way of living life, I think, is living life in chapters. It's very secure. We know how long we're going to be doing this, so we're going to be doing that. Very separate. We're going to separate these things. And
here's the day we separate them.
Exactly. We're going to get together and, wish each other farewell and then move on to the other thing. I understand the appeal of that. Personally, I find that a little boring. I think when something radical happens, yes, it's scary, but there's also an exciting part. What's going to happen next?
So then how do you mark goodbyes? Or don't you? Like, you left all those people in St. John. Like, did you just pull out with smoke on your wheels or what?
Pretty much.
Yeah?
It was actually kind of bad. I told everybody I was coming back. And at the time, I thought I was coming back.
Yeah.
So everybody, it's actually quite a common thing for people to leave that college. So everybody's going around, are you leaving? Or are you coming back? And at the time, I thought I was coming back. So I was like, yeah, I'll be back. Don't
See ya,
about
then.
me. And then zoop, I didn't come back. I got a couple texts from people like, dude, you didn't come back. But
sorry, man.
And honestly, I do feel a little bit sad about some friends. I made some good friends here. I feel a little bit sad about not having them in my life.
Not getting to hug them goodbye.
Not necessarily.
No, that doesn't bother you.
No. It's not like I wish I tied that bow on a relationship and ended that chapter together. It's more so I miss you in my life right now.
Right.
I want to call you on the phone and talk to you right now.
So many academics, like in all the research I've done, have labeled you and your classmates' experience as trauma. Would you agree with that? And if so, what has the experience of trauma meant to you or taught you as a person?
That's ridiculous.
You think it's ridiculous?
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, yeah, it wasn't easy, but stuff is going to happen in life. And I think we're like the most privileged generation. If you compare our lives with the lives of generations past, it's like not having a graduation ceremony. Come on. Like 3 generations ago, all of a sudden they had to suit up and go to war.
Right.
I call that trauma.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I understand. I do. It's not pleasant. I'm not saying just like, don't listen to your emotions, brush it off. This is nothing. No, it hurts. It does. But I would not compare it. I would not bring it up to the level of trauma.
So in saying that, like in discussing that, there's something called the quarter-century crisis. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay. The quarter-century crisis is a period when you're 25 years old and you kind of look back on everything and none of it is what you thought it would be. It's a period of like uncertainty, your delusion, you're questioning everything. Like I followed A, B, C, D, and my life is supposed to be, figured out and what the hell is going on. So would you think your generation's, even your class, is even going to experience that? Or do you feel like they kind of already did? Like you got handed hey, shit doesn't always go how you think it's going to go.
So the quarter-century crisis is like
when you're 25.
25, and all the stuff that's happened has not been as you've predicted.
It has been.
Oh,
like you've gone to how you've done everything, and then you're like, kind of like, is this all there is?
I don't think the change has been radical enough.
Okay.
To take away the quarter-century crisis. I think, we messed up on a year or two, but for the most part, we got back on track, our generation.
Is that how you feel? You guys kind of got back on track?
I think potentially everybody is still doing their best to follow the path that's been laid out that I mentioned before. Like in your 20s, you're supposed to go to college and have fun and party. And this is what you're supposed to do. And then at 25, I could absolutely see maybe a lesser amount of people in my generation experiencing that. Like, I don't think I'll experience that. I don't know.
You will either.
That's just kind of my thinking. It's like I'm always like try to be very conscious of my decisions rather than just taking what's in front of me. But yeah, I think a lot of our generation will still experience that. I don't think the COVID change was radical enough.
You don't?
For most people.
Okay. What does the future feel like for you now? Like, what feels important after your experience? I mean, you've kind of answered that a little bit. And what is the one great thing you plan to do with your life?
Oh, gosh.
So let's break it up. Like, what does the future feel like for you now? Or does it seem a little bit too far off still?
No, I mean, I have probably 2 years before I graduate, but for me, like, I'm already experiencing, like, panic attacks. So it's very uncertain. It's very uncertain. I mean, I'm going into a creative industry. Talk about no stability at all. Yeah,
You're going into a creative industry that doesn't have any stability. So I ask you, like, what feels important after the experience of these past 4 years?
Okay.
You still are choosing this industry. So you are still willing to take that risk, even though you're very well aware from your experience, and tell me if I'm wrong, that everything could go to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah. I guess the question kind of points me to one answer, and that it is perhaps a good takeaway from it. The most important thing could be don't rely on the traditions of the past to set your life forward. Be a little bit more comfortable with that insecurity, because that insecurity, it's almost like those traditions are insulating us from what life is like.
Great point.
But when we step out of those traditions, we look around and we're like, oh, like life is actually very unpredictable and uncertain, and our house could burn down tomorrow and we don't know what's going to happen. So I guess in a sense you could say a very important thing for me is understanding the uncertainty of life experience. Also just having people, like going back to that loneliness, having relationships, having a constant social life, very important for me.
So what is the one great thing you plan to do with your life?
I don't like that question.
Isn't it awful?
I really don't like it. I mean,
there's too many to name.
I don't really like looking at life as something that I'm going to do with. You know, so what am I going to do with my life? You know, it's not about the life itself. It's about what the life produces.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that idea. I think what's much more important is the life itself. So I think a life well lived, I don't even know if I've accepted this idea. Maybe I'm trying to accept it because I've been raised under the conditioning of you have to do something with your life. Absolutely, I've been raised into that. But ultimately, a life well lived, I could lie in a closet for 100 years, and as long as I'm happy, that's a life well lived, is if it's by my own terms.
That's true.
I'm not saying that I could accept that. I still think within me, I feel like I have to do something with my life.
Well, as a writer, too, I think that's tough. Like, I can relate to that a little bit. And like, what are you going to produce that changes the world, that touches the world? Do you feel that at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, I want to be in the canon. I want to, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's kind of like an ego thing. I think it's a desire to live forever. If you do something really good with your life, you'll be remembered. You'll be not only valued in this lifetime, but you'll be remembered in future lifetimes. And if you don't do something good, you'll just waste away into matter like everything else.
Yeah. So what was it all for?
Right. Yeah. So it rests on an atheistic, materialistic worldview, actually, that idea that we have to do something with our lives. I think if you go for a more just live your life, be happy approach, I'm not saying I can, I'm trying. That's a better way of looking at it.
Okay. And then my last question, unless there's something else you are dying to tell me, is what do you think people misunderstand about 22-year-olds today? I feel like, and I ask that question because I feel like there is a distinct division in Gen Z between you guys who are a little bit older, 23, 22, a little bit up, I think, and then below that, like the Nolans, the JJs. That
you would divide us?
Yeah, I would divide you. A little bit. Their experience, this is what I'm seeing as a parent and as somebody who writes and takes pictures for a living and kind of observes, is that you guys were the direct impact. Like it hit your class. But everyone forgot, like anyone who lost high school, like people that lost college, whatever. You know, like if you were a junior in college, you know, you were already on your way to moving outside of college. You're already thinking there. But it seems like a lot of the kids that were in high school are lost. And I find Nolan to be a rare exception, and some of his friends at college. There are more kids that just quit school altogether. Don't care. I'm thinking about my nephew who's graduating this year as a senior, who started his freshman year and went 18 months of never setting foot in high school. Doesn't understand, doesn't care, thinks it's all stupid because they were never in school. And then he went his junior year and he did everything he could to finish and be done. Now he's going to college, but you know, it's that whole construct, like you were saying earlier, like college is stupid. My friend in Maine, her daughter has decided not to go. So that's what I'm seeing. I don't know if you see it different or your particular class. What do people misunderstand really about your particular class?
That division that you were talking about, it absolutely exists. I would place it on kind of like what you said, if you made it to high school, if you had an uninterrupted elementary and middle school experience, and you made it to high school and had a little bit of high school before COVID hit, I would put you with my group of Gen Z. But if COVID hit when you were in elementary or middle school, that was like not just like sad for us who missed some high school. That was like severely damaging for your development. And a lot of people my age will look back at some younger members of Gen Z or older members of Gen Alpha and will be like, oh my God, what is going to happen? Well, this is what I think at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm worried the civilization will collapse once these children grow up. And that is COVID. I also think it's that they got devices a lot earlier. They got iPhone was 06, 07, around there. I think they got devices, iPads much earlier than we did. People forget that, we got like flip phones and slide phones when we were in 7th grade. That's so different from an iPhone, which we got probably 8th grade or high school.
Yeah.
Early high school. I would say that's the big divide.
Yeah. Have you read or heard of, I think it's called The Anxious Generation? Just came out.
I've heard of it.
John Haidt,
Yes.
the NYU professor. So I've listened to a bunch of podcasts on that. And he's adamant about that you guys, and I would say probably Nolan and JJ, so they're 20, right? That maybe you got an iPhone in 8th grade, freshman year, somewhere around there you got, and the iPhones weren't as capable, right? They weren't. But also social media did not exist for you. It existed for your parents because we had Facebook. When did Instagram come on the scene? 10?
Yeah.
11?
Yeah.
Again, for your parents, like pictures.
Right.
So you guys pretty much had a high school experience not really tainted by social media. I mean, when did Snap come on the senior freshman year?
Something around there.
And it was really just like...
Sending photos to people.
Yeah.
It wasn't that infinite scroll.
You didn't have the doom
later.
scroll.
Yeah. That makes such a huge difference in our development. Early devices and then having a year and a half, 2 years taken away of school, where you're at home just staring at those devices all day, that's the big divide,
Yeah.
I think. So what do people misunderstand about Gen Z? That could be one of them. That really maybe we should consider breaking Gen Z into 2 different parts.
Yeah.
Instead of just having like an arbitrary, these years of Gen Z.
Yeah.
I also saw something that's interesting. In a way, Gen Z is divided. We're talking about division so much, but honestly, I think that's appropriate. Gen Z is divided so much, particularly between men and women. One, we're not having sex with each other, people of my age, and there's so many reasons for that.
That blows my mind.
Yeah. It's also men.
It was like a major pastime.
Yeah, now it's like
Yeah.
a fantasy.
Yeah. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
And that, I don't know if that's led to this, but men and women are living very different lives in Gen Z. Men are much more conservative in Gen Z. Gen Z men are much more conservative than millennial men were. And Gen Z women are liberal, much more conservative than millennial women were. So we're going down these very different paths. We're separating from each other in a way that previous generations haven't done. In a way, I think the Gen Z male conservatism, and I've been finding myself drifting more to the right. It's in reaction to some of the stuff that Gen Z and I think Gen X brought on to the scene, just like very like anti-man, very liberal thinking, particularly in universities. Perhaps that's driving this divide, but I guess what people misunderstand is that it's hard to characterize Gen Z. That Gen Z is one group of people because we can divide it based on COVID, based on devices, all of these things that are new developments in our society that have had profound impacts on us. What we should call it the guinea pig generation, because there's been so many new developments that have been tried out on us when our brains are still forming. And that has led to so many different outcomes. So we'll see what happens in 100 years, because the test results are going to come back. We're going to see how these things really affect kids.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I find that so interesting, you talking about your generation of men, particularly like probably your age, moving conservative. I don't know a single of all the guys I know between my 2 sons and their friend groups and extended. I don't know anybody that's liberal. I don't know any white male or even black male that I'm thinking of that is extremely liberal. Maybe center. And even ones that were crazy. I mean, I had a couple kids that I photographed or whatever that were crazy liberal. And one's a professor at UNC now, and I'm a little bit like, come off the conservative wall, buddy. It's not that, like, take a step forward, like, and I do think that. I think what happened to you guys? Like, is it the softening? Is it the you're not allowed to step into being a man? Like, I don't understand it.
It probably has to do with social media. We saw the millennials going batshit crazy, dressing up in furry outfits and dyeing their hair. And also it's the rise of people like Jordan Peterson, people like these internet phenomenons who speak to us. It's actually quite dangerous, I think, to exclude men from society in the way that's been going on, to demonize men. It's going to come back and bite you. Right now, I think that's why the internet is such a filthy place, because men are being sidelined from society. So these feelings of isolation and anger, of being mistreated, are coming out on the internet. They're coming out in very, very violent porn.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah.
In these chat rooms. And then they're coming back in all sorts of forms, these extreme ones, but also in more healthy forms like Jordan Peterson, other people who are just speaking to these men. But if you sideline men from society, it's going to come back. And it'll come back in a very right-wing, militaristic, aggressive way. So it's something I think we have to be careful of consequences that'll happen in like 20 years.
Yeah. You know who's big on this right now? Do you follow Scott Galloway? Yeah, I figured you might love him. Yeah. He talks about it a lot. I've been following him since the very first podcast. And he's got a whole thing about young men right now because he sees it. Now, why do you think that your generation do you think it has anything to do with COVID, that you guys are not having sex? Like, that you're not, like, the dating is not, I mean, you weren't going to parties, you weren't, like, that whole freshman year of college. And I know not everyone goes to college. It's not the, experience for everybody, but you're going out, you're in the dorms living with girls, everything's a party, like you get to bar, like you are actually forced to interact. And you guys did not have any of that.
I absolutely think COVID was part of that. Absolutely. Because it's not like you can just, once COVID was over, you can just, all right, now we can go and have sex with each other. Something about everybody starting college at the same time. Everybody going out to these bars in a college town for the first time. People are more open. So I think we formed habits as a generation during that year and a half. When that wasn't happening, we all went to the dating apps. A lot of men started just watching a lot of porn. Probably, I mean, if they weren't, they'd probably watched it before, but maybe they got more satisfied with porn.
Easier end game.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yeah. You put so much less work into it and get, you don't get the same reward. It's a
different reward, but
usually not complete reward. But for plenty of men, it's enough. Also, women with social media, because like traditionally, like men have traded assets like time, money for women and sex. Women have traded sex for security, for money and time and attention. Now, women are getting money and time and attention by posting on OnlyFans, by posting on social media. They're getting this stuff without physical men. Men are getting sex or a weird substitute from porn without physical women. So we're kind of getting these substitutes and not having to experience, because both of them are dangerous. With men, you might fear rejection. For a woman, it could be much worse. Rape and mistreatment and all these things. So we're kind of choosing not to take the risk and taking this not complete substitute in exchange as a generation. And I think that substituting started as a habit in these 18 months during COVID. Or even if it started before then, those 18 months made it much worse. And it's hard to go back.
Right. And how do you teach people to socialize? Because when you're 18 or 19 in school, and you act dumb and do dumb, everyone around you is dumb. Like when you're learning, like when you were talking about, you were totally isolated and depressed and everything. Like when you're at college, like it's like, hey man, everyone's in the same boat. And so you're more willing to take the risk of feeling foolish because the payoff is community, friendships, sex, and you guys got none of it. And so I think that's where, like, I don't know, academia, life, people, whatever, are short-sighted in what happened to you guys. And like you said, it's like the great experiment, but like you were the start of it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens after.
We'll see.
Thanks for listening to Laying Fallow. Be sure to listen to the rest of the episodes, and to learn more and see the portraits from both 2020 and 2024, head over to my website, www.donnavonbruning.com, or to my Instagram, @DonnaVonBruning.